Hello, this is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Appreciate you taking a few moments to listen in today. And today is all of you that are watching, at least now, and for those in the future, I'll try to give you context if you're watching at some point down the road. Of course, right now in business, everything has kind of been turned on its head for the most part. I know in my business, we're essential, so we're, for most of us, are working in the office most days. But I know for many during this time that working remotely has kind of become just kind of a reality. And I think for some of us, I think it's kind of opened the doors as far as what's possible, as far as not necessarily needing to be into the brick and mortar location and being able to work remotely. There's a lot of benefit to that. I know there are times that I work from home or I work from other locations and very much enjoy having a change of scenery. But there's a lot to be said, of course, coming into the office, so to speak, every day as well. What I want to talk about today, especially kind of given this environment of kind of this new, what's probably going to be a little bit of a new normal of working remotely. And how do we, just some general thoughts on how we can go about working effectively while still working remotely. Of course, early on in my career, it was in the 90s and kind of the old kind of people gathering around the water cooler in the morning and kind of chatting and touching base was kind of a thing back then. Nowadays, I'm not even sure if too many offices even have water coolers, but there's still kind of that dialogue in the office and kind of the ability to kind of just walk you across the hall into somebody's office or kind of maybe a couple cubicles down and talk to, I guess we don't use cubicle, but a couple desks over and just kind of have a conversation when trying to address a problem, or just simply just trying to touch base on a matter. So here I'm just going to kind of give maybe just a half a dozen different thoughts as far as working remotely and maybe some helps as we do so. First of all, I think being effective while we work remotely is going to require approaching work with a greater sense of discipline and focus. So it does really but we have to be a little bit more purposeful. We're not in the office. There's not other individuals, and whether we're owning the business and people kind of popping in on us, or vice versa, as far as us going and just simply talking or communicating with our employees and just kind of doing that regular oversight with our work. It's going to require us really to have a lot more self-discipline. So we have to be a little bit more purposeful in the way that we work. And this is going to require greater self-discipline, greater focus. I think a lot of this kind of boils down to consistency in our schedule, to still make sure that we're having the elements of our schedule that we would have otherwise. For some people, I know for myself, I kind of have a morning routine. So most mornings look the same for me. Now, this is not true if you watch my last podcast that we did a kind of a leadership discussion with a local pastor, and he talked about how he didn't necessarily have a morning routine, and that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. But I think probably for most people, there needs to be some sort of routine to that schedule, and a lot of that starts right off the bat when we get up in the morning to make sure that we're eating breakfast, we're practicing good hygiene. I think for most of us, probably getting a workout in at least 5 days a week is probably a good idea. To get that day started off and get it started off well as you work throughout the day, to make sure that you have a schedule and you're sticking to it. That you have those elements of time blocking that you need. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we work through this. But just to make sure that you're very purposeful about your day. Getting up and saying, okay, well, I'll just casually go about getting things done generally isn't very effective when we get to the end of the day and look back and say, okay, did I actually accomplish the things that I needed to get done? So approaching life with a greater sense of discipline and focus. Secondly, get up and get dressed. And I think that it's very well proven. And of course, nowadays, kind of the dressing for success is kind of a thing that kind of died, I think, probably back in the 90s and into the 2000s. And even as I sit here as an accountant, I'm not, if I was an accountant back in the 80s and 90s and early on in my career, most days I would walk into the office, I'd have a tie on, I might have a sport coat on, and if I had meetings, it might have required a suit. Those days are gone. I'm sitting here, I'm in a casual shirt, I actually have jeans on. And so we kind of a little bit more casual nowadays in our dress. But I think getting out of bed and just trying to work in our pajamas or things that we lounge around the house, I think we're going to find ourselves not being as productive. So I think there's a lot to be said mentally when we get up. And whether that is, I have a friend that kind of get up in maybe black jeans and a black t-shirt as their dress for the day. And I think that that's perfectly fine. Whatever it is that you normally wear as you go about your work day, under normal circumstances, you still get up and dress that way as you go about doing your work. I think you'll find yourself being a lot more productive. Third, have an effective means of communication, effective way of communicating regularly with your team. And so whether it's with other team members, if you're an employee with other employees, if you're the owner of the business, making sure that you have regularly scheduled times in your schedule to where you can communicate with your team and communicate effectively. Of course, this day and age with technology, and there's of course many different platforms out there that you can use to where you can get on calls with your team. And actually, you can have the visual element where you can screen share, you can actually see their face, you can have that dialogue. But to schedule that time throughout the day, so you can get status updates, what's going on, and if you're the owner of the business, to be able to get feedback, and also I think even maybe more importantly, to be able to get the help that you need, to be able to have the dialogue with another team member, saying, okay, I'm struggling in this area, I need help on this, and to be able to beyond that also be an encouragement to each other throughout the course of the day. So have an effective means of communicating regularly with your team to both ask for help and also for status updates. Next, be timely, be on time. When you have that schedule, I was commenting, I think yesterday morning on a phone call with a client. I was kind of going through and putting the notes down for this particular podcast for recording today, and I ended up being a few minutes late to the recording, and kind of coincidentally enough, it wasn't that much earlier that I had actually written this point down, and I commented to them and apologized for being late to the meeting. But try to be timely, be purposeful with your schedule, as I mentioned earlier. Be timely with your meetings, and make sure that you're paying attention to that. You're still considerate of other people's time. You're doing the things that you normally would do if you were in the office. Next, take breaks and enjoy the change in scenery. For me, some of the fun of working remotely is kind of being able to work in different areas. So take those liberties. Take the liberty to go out and on a lunch break or maybe on a morning or afternoon break and take a walk with your spouse or with one of your children if you happen to be home. Enjoy it. Enjoy being able to work in a different location in the home, or maybe sitting outside and working. I know in my house, and it's a little bit early in the year still, this time of the year to do it. I know especially in the summer and fall months, and even later on in the spring, sometimes I enjoy taking my laptop out onto our deck or a screened-in porch and being able to work out there. Still can do everything I can do inside the house, but enjoy this time of the year. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy the liberties that you have to be able to take breaks and sit down and have lunch with the family. Things you normally wouldn't be able to do. Make sure you still pay attention to those elements of your day as well. And lastly, and maybe most importantly in all of this, is guarding your spirit and keeping a good attitude. Right now, and of course, those of you listening to it within a few days of recording, we're still working our way through this whole shelter-in-place or stay-at-home orders, and a lot of businesses are closed, and there's a lot of negativity. You turn on social media, you turn on the news, and it's just very, very negative. And I think for probably most of us, I know definitely for me, and I know for a lot of people that I regularly network and talk with, that we've had to really kind of shut down a lot of that. I know in my house, we pretty much stopped watching the news. We have occasional shows that we enjoy watching, but going home and turning on one of the news networks, we just don't do it now. Just simply because it's so negative. Social media, just a lot of negativity. And so I think for those of us, if we're going to be productive, if we're going to be operating in a good mindset during this time, we have to shut that stuff off. And so, yes, I think it's important that we kind of keep up with what's going on, but time block for that. Don't allow for yourself to get in the trap of the negativity of media, the negativity on social media, the bantering back and forth, the nonsense sometimes that goes on. To really be purposeful in guarding your spirit and keeping your attitude right, and getting yourself around people and have a regular dialogue with people who that can help lift your spirits, keep your spirits high, and also in the alternative or in complementary to be able to go back to them and also to try to help lift their spirits as well. And I think ultimately for all of us, living daily with a sense of gratitude. I think right now it kind of really gives us the opportunity of, there's a lot of little things that we miss. I miss going to the local coffee shop and having a cup of coffee, being able to go to a local diner and have a meal with family and friends, and just things that we normally just kind of take for granted, but make sure that we're operating with a sense of gratitude, with kind of the difficulty of the times. there's still a lot that we can be grateful for. And hopefully this was helpful for you. We talked a little bit about working remotely, ways that we can still be effective in our day-to-day lives during this time. If this brought you value, I would encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to the Belk on Business podcast. Once again, my name is Josh Belk. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Have a wonderful day.